Hey,
Jake.
there she is. Good morning.
Good
Can you hear
morning.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay, let me turn up my volume a little bit. Well, awesome. I was just saying, we met originally in Chamonix, and
Great.
you're a super athlete, a genius, Stanford, Harvard, and done some amazing things. And
You're too kind.
officially, what's that?
I said you're too kind.
Officially, Mimi's a psychologist at Facebook at the Wellness Center there, and she's a chief medical officer at Brightside, which is a really interesting company. They do affordable and really high quality treatment of depression and anxiety right in the comfort of your own home. So interesting background, a couple really cool things going in Silicon Valley. You're right in the heart of San Francisco. And I guess maybe I'd start with our first question. What's the most common anxiety or fear or thing that you see in Silicon Valley, especially with, tech executive types?
Yeah, interesting. I think that I'd have to consolidate that into one word, which is failure. People have a big fear of failure here. I work with a lot of driven, perfectionistic people who are trying to squeeze every last drop out of themselves, and probably could gain a lot from reading your book, because there's there's so much to learn from one's motivations around this. And if you take a high performing perfectionistic person and put them in, and give them the wrong tools and put them in the wrong environment, you end up with burnout. And if you put them in the right environment and give them the right tools, you draw amazing things from it. So I deal with a lot of fear of failure, and I think as a result, a lot of anxiety, stress, and burnout.
Okay, that brings up a great point for all the entrepreneurs out there, and I know we've got a couple on there who lead teams. What you say, give them the right tools, and they don't lead to burnout. So, what are the right tools? What's there's probably no one size fits all. So, but what do you see that works that enables people to use that fear as fuel?
Yeah, I think part of the key is being able to not fall into this mode of being an automaton and just looking at extrinsic goals and extrinsic expectations, but really getting in touch with what makes you tick, what is creative energy for you, what you draw on, what gives you energy, what part of your work really gives you energy, worrying about that, rather than just worrying about pleasing and succeeding.
Well, and that's the subtitle of the book, How to Find Purpose and Passion. So I've got a lot of things in the book to find that purpose and the passion and get beyond the automaton of kind of the flywheel of material goods or the flywheel of promotions or that sort of thing. So how do you suggest people find a purpose and passion within the context of today? We're all stuck at home, so we can't run, meeting to meeting this person, finding out this technology or whatever. So within the context of being at home and isolated, how can we find purpose and passion, Mimi?
Yeah, well, I think this being at home offers a tremendous silver lining and opportunity. I know there's a lot of fear that while we're dealing with sort of first order needs now of health and food and shelter and everything, that there are fears that this will lead to a big mental health crisis. And I think there is potential for mental health trauma to come from this period of social isolation, certainly. But I think the silver lining in it may be that we've been in this mode up until now of just like more, more stimulation, more dopamine, more oxytocin, just in a feast of dopamine, really, up until now. And that this period of slowing down and taking stock, not being as distracted by the merry-go-round that we've all been on, gives us an opportunity to actually reconnect with what we might be most interested in, what might really make us tick, and actually the opportunity to connect dots that haven't been connected in a while. So some creative energy and passion. Probably most of us who've been at home in the last couple of weeks have done an activity we haven't done in many years, like play a musical instrument or bake cookies or do something that, has kind of gotten lost in the busyness of life. And so I do think there's a silver lining to reconnect with those things.
Well, one of the things I've been talking as I've interviewed great people like yourself is that we should get in a routine. So I have a very strict morning routine, do every morning, and takes me about an hour. And when I own the morning, I own the rest of the day, right? I already feel like by the time 8:30 rolls around, I got a lot accomplished and got some things done. That routine has definitely helped me to create a sense of normalcy. I'm alone in Boston. Kristen and the kids are in Chamonix, so I'm separated. We FaceTime a couple of times a day. What other stresses have you seen, you know, for people, or let me rephrase that, for people who want to create a playbook of maybe finding their purpose now, finding what their passion is, so they can come out of this, not just survive it, but thrive and come out on the other side saying, hey, I've got a plan, you know, the economy is going to pick back up. I'm finally going to quit my job. I'm finally going to do that startup. I'm finally going to bike across America. I'm finally going to write the book. How do you get them off of that sort of procrastination, which is a fear response, an amygdala response? How do you get them off of that and help them write a playbook now during tough times that's going to make them feel like they're accomplishing something?
Yeah, well, I think the first step of that is to slow down and kind of, even though this sounds sort of horrible, but learn to live without in the way that we were just discussing. So slow down and kind of do some taking stock of what's important. And then with that, you know, I think can come some real creative energy and an ability to think in a slower, more connected way than maybe we've been able to when we're running from one thing to the next and focused on very short-term goals. I mean, one of the points that's been made by many people other than myself is just that with current financial markets, companies are so forced into short-term results, yeah. short-term goals. And I think what this does is it gives us some opportunity to think in a more long-term way about, well, what are the changes we're going to be facing? Nobody really knows now. There's a tremendous amount of uncertainty about what the future holds, but it gives us some opportunity to think instead about what are we doing this quarter to what do we want to do over the next 18 months, over the next 5 years? And, how might the world change as a result of this? And I think what we'll see come out of this among the people who give it a chance is a tremendous amount of creative energy and opportunity, you know, maybe to treat the planet differently, or an opportunity to treat our workday differently or our relationships differently.
Well, I love the fact about creative energy and with the uncertainty, because it's really one or the other from a neuroscience perspective. Our brain is a prediction engine, as a lot of people have heard me say. When we can't predict the outcome of a current event, like right now, we can't predict what's going to happen with coronavirus. We produce all this free energy that manifests itself in a feeling of fear and this feeling of stress to a lot of people. What you're saying, on the other hand, which is where creativity lives, if you can be in this scenario, not succumb to the things you can't control. Like, we can't control how quickly it spreads. We can't control, you know, what the governor does about it, what the president does about it, any of that. If we can let go of that and we can control what we control, and then say, okay, I'm going to start being curious about where the opportunity lies here. I'm going to ask the right question. A lot of people are afraid just to ask why, you know, just to ask that key question. But that's really where creativity lives. So how do you help foster that sense of creativity or that curiosity?
Yeah, that's right. And I'm often quoted as talking about our brains as prediction engines too. Our brains spend an enormous amount of time just sort of humming along. We don't realize it, thinking about what's happened to us in the past, and then how does that influence what's coming next? And we're all in this very novel situation right now where we don't necessarily have the data to predict what's going to happen next. And that easily translates into a lot of fear, anxiety, discomfort. It's very helpful right now when I'm working with clients to just have them name the emotion they're feeling in any given moment. If they can just sit and say, okay, what is it I'm feeling right now? That in itself can be very freeing, because we all have a lot of sort of random kinetic energy going on in our brains right now, trying to predict what's next, given that we don't have the data set to necessarily know what's next. One of the things we're trying to do at Brightside is, you know, we designed Brightside because we have had a mental health epidemic on our hands for some years now, and people don't really have a great place to go when they're feeling this kind of anxiety or even depression. And so our goal with Brightside was really to design an affordable go-to place where people could get expert care in less than 48 hours, really from the comfort of their own couch. And they can get expert consultation with a psychiatrist or therapist to get access to some of these tools and, you know, and address the problems they may be feeling now. And, you know, freeing up that energy for creative projects, not being sort of ruled by the anxiety and the fear, is really where we need to get people right now.
And it's amazing, Mimi, what you're talking about. I often tell people with the book, I'm like the car mechanic, just because my personal life, I went from driving the little Volkswagen Bug to all of a sudden driving a Ferrari after that near-death experience. So I want to figure out how the brain works. So I understand it, and I love hearing a manifestation, a use of some of the neuroscience. So what you said about naming the feelings that you're feeling, most people think, well, you know, especially a lot of type A, hard charging, say, oh, I don't need to name my feelings, right? That touchy-feely stuff. But from a neuroscience perspective, when we were talking about the brain being a prediction engine, the brain falls back on things in our history that were useful. It lets go of everything else. What it was useful, we store in our subconscious database as prior beliefs. And those prior beliefs are all driven by memories that we've had experienced, either real or imagined. That's why visualization works. But when you make a memory, you form two memories. One is a episodic or a semantic memory, which are just the facts. The other is an emotional memory. They're stored in two different places. But the key thing is, it's easier for your brain to store it if you name it and recognize it so it can go with something else. And so the point that Mimi's making right now about being able to name an emotion isn't just, you know, it's not just a touchy-feely idea. It's how our brain works. So it allows it to classify that emotion with other emotions similar to it. So that's a great tip, and it's all, you know, like all of your work based on neuroscience. And once you understand how it works, it becomes really powerful. So that's definitely helpful stuff. Being creative, looking at the outcome, controlling what you can control. How about some fun stuff? How are people dating now, right? We're locked in place, and I know you've got a soft spot in your mind because you have all the code word, and I think back to, we just got a new puppy, and I think back to, you know, how breeders describe puppies as energetic, meaning like they're tearing everything apart and chewing all the stuff. So sort of code words. And I know you've seen that with some of your online dating and some interesting stuff. So talk about that.
Patrick knows I'm working on a book right now about dating and really actually sort of what we can extract from texts in dating. And because this has been interesting to me for some time. I've worked in the digital health space for a while. As Patrick mentioned, I'm a psychiatrist. And one of the things that's been interesting in the digital health world is what can we learn from a person's text? Word pairings, grammar, all kinds of things. There are interesting elements in the text that can reveal things about people's personalities and traits, and even we can even identify mental illness sometimes through text messaging. And so
I've had a few of those.
We are now in a world where dating is happening. It's not just the online part of dating is not just a sort of prequel to, you know, meeting, hooking up, forming relationships. But now I think early phases of dating are really happening exclusively online. People are texting a lot longer than they were before. They're having Zoom dates or Zoom interviews or whatever you want to call it, but they're hanging out online. They're watching Netflix movies together as a date, and separately, but together. And so I think it kind of underscores the importance of looking at communication, of online communication. What can we derive from it? What can we learn about the person in those early phases of dating? And how can we make the right choices as we're navigating this very complex world of germs and dating? And, you know, it's sort of taken things to a new level of like, do I want to, if I'm going to contract a deadly virus, do I want to get it from a gas pump or through a kiss? I'm not sure.
That's an easy one.
You know, I think people are still figuring it out right now. We're week 3 into this, and so I think people are figuring out. But I think texting and the cues one can derive from texting and video are becoming more essential.
So give us some interpretation, maybe, because I know people are sitting there at home saying, "Wow,
Yeah.
what should I look out for in a text?"
Yeah.
Of course, I have a 17-year-old daughter, so I'm just going to take the phone away.
Yeah. Well, you got to stay tuned for my book, but I mean everything from the cadence of text to the word choice of text to, you know, how many personal pronouns is the person using? Is that a sign of narcissism? Or what does the what does the exchange look like in terms of sort of number of words and the kinds of words that are included in the text? One can draw a lot of important conclusions from this. We've done studies at a couple of the companies where I've worked with to sort of see if we can identify depression, for instance, in a text message. And there are key signs to what does a depressed person sound like when they're writing. And that can be very, very helpful when you're chatting with somebody. You know, many of these new companies are doing online therapy. So the therapist may be texting with their client instead of meeting with them face to face. And key word pairings can identify risk and can also indicate, you know, whether the person might be in a more severe depressive state. And so these things are actually quite helpful in a clinical sense, but they might also be helpful socially as you're trying to get to know somebody and understand a little bit more about them, what their emotional landscape is like.
And so you're going to be putting out a book that gives everyone kind of the playbook, the handbook
exactly
for dating online. And
exactly.
Do you have a published date or
not yet?
Target?
Not yet. In the works. Yeah. In the works.
Well, we can't wait to see it. And where should people follow you? So if people want to hear more about your research, keep up with you, what's the best way?
Yeah, I'll have to get back to you on that too. I do not have
she's
social
Facebook
media following you do, Patrick.
And you're not on the social media. Well, there you go. That's great. Well, listen, you guys, keep an eye out for Dr. Mimi Winsberg. Make sure you follow me at The Fear Guru. So click follow now if you haven't already, because we've got more great content like this coming up. We'll definitely bring Dr. Winsberg back. She's awesome, and this was really a fun way to start our morning.
Yeah, and I'll just leave you guys with, if there are needs for depression and anxiety among you or your loved ones during this time, if you log on to brightside.com, you can get connected with a professional within 48 hours and, you know, take an assessment and see where you stand. So if you're worried about anybody in your life right now who may be struggling and these are hard times, just go to Brightside and we'll take care of you.
Oh, that's awesome. And have you seen, just to follow up on that from a startup perspective, Mimi, have you seen a big uptick with all this happening?
Big uptick. Yeah, I'm both as within our company and then also as a professional. I've just been very, very busy in these times. You know, it's definitely, I think we are all 100% of us struggling with an adjustment disorder to this new landscape right now. And I think for anybody who has any underlying anxiety, it's a tough time. So yeah, we want to make sure we're available and delivering care to people right now. And again, a low cost, affordable way to get care without the hassle of navigating the healthcare system.
That's great. Okay. Well, Dr. Mimi Winsberg, thanks so much. Can't wait to see you again. Hopefully it's soon in person. And
yeah, we need a mountain adventure.
Yeah, I would definitely look forward to it.
Okay. Take care, Patrick.
All right, thanks, Million. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.